main topic, immigration, the myth of high-skilled workers. I read, about two-thirds of the commentary I ran across by Nick Gillespie talking about Trump and at the CPAC. And he says, boy, I'll tell you, he's got the election 2021 already if he just keeps it up. You were there for a while, weren't you?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I mean, I didn't go to see the president. I've seen him several times. And as us journalists know that when you get locked in, you get locked in. So it takes up a probably good 6 to 8 hours of your day just to be inside the room, and probably a little bit longer. Nobody expected a 2-hour speech from the president, but yeah, I actually watched the speech. So yeah, I mean, he was fired up, ready to go.
Would you agree that he probably made a lot of points when it comes to voting again for him? Or do you think that's already mostly a locked-in crowd?
Well, I mean, both. I'll say both on that. I think that most people who go to the CPAC is a conservative outfit. However, the topic we're going to talk about today with the Center of Immigration Studies, they were not invited to speak and have a voice at CPAC. So there's a bit of a splinter. On Friday afternoon, I went to a get-together with a new report that came out by the Center for Immigration Studies. Very interesting topic that we're going to get to discuss. But in that room, there are a lot of people who are a little upset that they don't get a voice at the table like they thought they were going to get a voice at the table.
Yeah. I ran across my notice, because the Center for Immigration Studies, every time they get ready to do something, and I can't remember, pardon me, who that main speaker was. I know it wasn't Victoria.
Oh, no, it was Jason Richwire. He has a PhD. He came out with this new study, Jason Richwire. Yeah, Richwire. Yeah.
Maybe why me and Daddy Duck don't have him on, what I'm saying?
I'm sure he'd be happy to speak. I'm sure he'd be happy to speak with you on this. He did a very thorough report. He actually dived into the data, and a lot of the data is just that. It's data, and the numbers don't lie. And when you look at these issues on education, at least, you're seeing the native born, which are obviously Americans, outdo the foreign born labor market because they actually have a higher skill set than what's being presented by mostly the mainstream media, that here we have all these high-skilled people coming into our country and they're doing us a great favor. So, that's kind of something that's a narrative that they're trying to put out there, but, it's not something that actually is true, and the numbers here that CIS came up with back that up.
Yeah, and this is on our topic, immigration and the myth of high-skilled workers. You always wonder, well, we got to go to other countries to get those high-skilled workers. Coming up on the bottom of our hour break here, in a moment, I'm going to be getting in with Kimberly about what is the impact of immigration on skilled workers, as well as the value of foreign versus domestic diplomacy. That's our plate is full. Kimberly Dvorak, Senior Foreign Policy Advisor, Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy, and the website theknereport.com.
They CIS commissioned the study be done, and Jason actually went in and found some really good data that anyone who actually knows how to go around and navigate the government data website could be able to get the information. But as journalists, and as Jason actually pointed out, there's a lot of data that's out there that doesn't see the light of day, because it's impossible for us to all read the same data, and it's just the volumes of it can be intimidating. But again, we're fighting against the mainstream media and the elites who really want to push for the immigration. In fact, corporations in this country, as you know, they would rather save money on labor and hire people that are not going to cost them as much money as native-born Americans.
Kimberly, besides the mainstream media, do you think they have so much on here that cram it
I don't know if they're doing that purposefully. It's actually what's happening. In certain instances, when I'm working on my national security, my foreign policy stories, and my, foreign military sales stories and series that I'm continuing to work on, I'm actually finding that, buried beneath a lot of data and names of actual committees that really it's very misleading to see, okay, you think they're going to be talking about foreign policy, and so you go look in on foreign policy committees, and then it's the most random, name for a committee or an actual department. So you got to do a lot of research so you can do a lot of research. So that's what I've found when I've gone in to look at the government books on a lot of this stuff. And we're certainly finding out a lot more about the foreign military sales program by being able to talk to the right people, point me in the right direction, and allow me to get that information. That's exactly what Jason did here with CIS. He had to go through a lot of data. He had to collate it. He had to put it all together and make sense of it. And he did so. And it's actually quite shocking. And I think a lot of Americans would be very interested in this topic, especially a lot of parents are considering sending their kids to 4 years, 8 years of college. So, these numbers should startle American parents and Americans across the country.
So what does the United States government data confirm or undermine high-skilled foreign education programs?
Well, what it does is a lot of right now the key word or the buzzword is high tech or high skilled labor. We need more people for Facebook. We need more people for technological jobs that our kids apparently don't want to do. That's kind of the big push with Facebook, with Bill Gates, with a number, Google, all of these companies. And what Jason was able to figure out, and by looking just looking at the numbers, looking at the test results, that the foreign-born labor that's coming into the country is not nearly as skilled as the U.S. citizen children are. They go to college, they take the same classes. In some cases, they take the same classes. There's actually two different ways, obviously. There are some high school people are coming in from other countries saying they got their degrees in other countries, and that's a separate. But when the kids are all put together and they all go to the same classes together, it's the American students are doing a lot better and scoring a lot higher on these tests that colleges are providing. And also you have to think too that, we're talking, when you talk about highly skilled, you're looking mostly at, technology, and our Gen Zs and our millennials, they've grown up with cell phones in their hands and iPads on their book table and computers, at their desk. So they have these skills already. And if you could come from another country, from say Central America, South America, Africa, wherever it may be, you don't have access to that same data. And when you have to learn that on top of learning English and learning how the way things are done in this country, it presents a bit of a liability for them. And it's a harder, road for them to cross over to the other side and gain those skills. So it doesn't mean that everybody that comes to the country that goes to college doesn't have the same intellect, and it doesn't mean that there aren't a few people, because I know the left is really big on saying that, well, they're the ones that come up and do the biggest, come up with the next Facebooks, or they're they're inventing all these things that we wouldn't be inventing if it wasn't for them. The data on this simply does not pace out that way, and it's not actually the truth. It's more the exception than the rule.
I hear that, of course, when these high-skilled workers from other countries come in, they're getting a lower salary than an American worker would get. Is that true?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're looking at people that, you're looking at the two biggest offenders in this are, I'll say the top three. Let's put the top three up there. And it's, Bill Gates with, all of his corporations. And of course he, invented the IBM. And then you've got Facebook, which is Mark Zuckerberg, and you have Google. These are the largest, companies, as well as Amazon. We can throw Amazon in there just for good measure as well. But these are companies that most Americans, I don't want to say most, a lot of Americans don't realize that when you are hired as an employee, that the employer actually has to pay half the taxes and you pay the other half of the taxes. That if you are paying $100 a month for your employee for insurance, your company you work for is actually paying another $100. So if you're graduating from 4 years of college and you have X number of dollars in debt, you're going to require, and you're going to want a job that's going to be better paying than working, say, at Starbucks. Well, these immigrants that come into the country, a lot of them have their educations paid for by their home country. And, of course, the top countries there would be China and India. And they will pay for that education. And on top of that, they're happy to be here in this country, and they're happy to actually be working. And a lot of these employers can hire them knowing that they will work for less, because obviously if you're from a third world country, here is like great. And then they also they dangle the green card over them, because a lot of them come here on either the O visas or H-1B1 visas that, we hear about. But a lot of these people, for them, they can go to school here or college here, but then they got to turn around and go home when they're done if they don't have a job. So they're sitting in a precarious position, and they will work for less. They'll work for longer hours because they don't want to have to go back to their home countries. And employers know this. And if you're, a CEO, again, I don't want to throw CEOs under the bus, but this is where I don't understand where the liberals are and the liberal lawmakers on this, is that, these, CEOs, they have a board of people that are looking out, and they've got customers, and they've got to make sure that they're having a very good return on their investment and making money. So, their shareholders are making money as well. So of course they're going to do the best for their shareholders, and that would be lowering the cost of labor. It's an easy target for them to get, and they take advantage of that, lock, stock, and barrel.
Every time you hear Gates and Zuckerberg, right? So,
Yeah.
For example, when I hear Facebook, I'm thinking, how much high-skilled labor from overseas does it take to work at Facebook?
Yeah.
And as you mentioned before, Kimberly, about the average kid, everything they've accomplished now with their phones and their pads and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, they do stuff that's unbelievable. And so far, I haven't really seen where Facebook has gone that far beyond what the kids are doing in the front room instead of studying homework. Am I making sense at all?
A little bit. I'm sorry to mean that. I'm sorry. No, I think what Facebook is doing, I mean, they really stand out here because, during the 2016 presidential election, they set up PACs, they sent people to the halls of Congress. They tried to get all of the dreamers, to become legalized in this country because they're such a great asset in this country. But what we're seeing with a lot of these people, we'll say, young adults that are coming from other countries, they've been here for more than 5 years or so. They still aren't proficient in English. And why is that? Why are we not teaching the immigrants English? And why is it not required? It used to be required that you had to take an English proficiency exam that showed that you were, integrating in society, that you were prepared to be an American. And that was something this country used to offer, or actually not offer. It was something that it was required. Now, we will offer English classes for people who want to go after school or after work or whatnot. But you're finding the level of proficiency is a lot lower than it was, say, 20 years ago, because people back 20 years ago, it was a requirement, not like, nudge you on the shoulder and say, hey, we think you need to be, a little more well-versed in the English language. So I think that may be something that you're talking about. And I don't see Facebook out there really, encouraging people to go out and learn the English language.
And if you want to, affect the vote, Facebook, all you got to do is be like George Soros, just, hire a bunch of protesters to go out. That'll work.
Well, on Google too, with Google, they have Google Translate. So you can just put in the one side of what you're trying to do. And then on the other side, on the flip side, there's English. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that will probably account for this, but it just, the more that, people want to come to this country and work for less money than native born, that's where we're going to have the problem. And that's why I don't understand why the left and the Democrats really aren't all on board with this. They think we ought to have more workers in this country. And the thing is, though, these workers are taking up the lower skilled jobs, and they're not going to be, they're not necessarily the high skilled that they're actually touted as being.
Well, that kind of touches on my next question, because according to data, literacy levels of foreign-born immigrant results are actually overlooked by the Department of Homeland Security and the Immigration, U.S.
CIS, yeah.
Give us some more examples on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at, like high school graduation exams, well, in California, we used to have it. They've like abandoned that, having the high school exit exam. But when you look at those numbers in other states that still have that, the native-borns are scoring much, much higher on these exams than the, foreign-born immigrants. And the numbers we're talking about right now, these are all legal immigrants. They've entered the country, the best we can tell, legally. So we're not talking about people who are crossing the border illegally, and the migration and the migrants that are taking place right now. This does not include that necessarily. But, some of the other, issues, that's, in college or in high school, I know that, with my youngest, it was like STEM. You had to be a STEM major. You had to study science and math and all of these, these topics, which, most girls try to stay away from. And it's not the most exciting, I think, education, but it does provide, that field actually provides a very important, need for all of the society, basically, and, keeping the economy running and employing Americans and employing immigrants and moving forward. A lot of these people that are taking the STEM jobs are foreign born. And in fact, I actually interviewed one of the deans of the STEM program at UCSD in San Diego a couple of years ago. And the STEM major, the kids that were graduating from this, with STEM degrees were less likely to be working in their field that they studied. And they were finding, and this gets back to the Bill Gates and the Zuckerbergs and the Google and Amazons, that a lot of these people at these big corporations, they're data entry people. They just need the data put into their programs. And it's a boring task. It's something that has to be done because everything we see on the computer is coded and came from somewhere. And they require these kids to come in and take these jobs. A lot of the US born kids, they aren't getting those jobs. In fact, they're getting them at a lower rate. And this can be directly correlated to what the income is and what, the, students, when they go to work at, IBM or they go work at Facebook, they haven't, for the last 20 years, we haven't really seen any dramatic wage increases, while the economy, it's cost more to live in this country than it did 20 years ago. We're not seeing the salaries correlating and following along on that same line. So, there's just a lot of information out there that, again, that, the mainstream media is more than happy to kind of put the numbers out there and saying these high skilled kids, we could not get by without these high skilled workers. And we do need workers in this country, but there are an awful lot of Americans that are like not working in their field where they went to college and studied, because those jobs are being taken by, people that aren't doing as well and aren't as proficient as they should be.
And of course, what we're talking about now with the high-skilled workers from other countries, mainly they're coming over here on visas.
Yeah.
Not climbing over the barbed wire fence that doesn't exist or wading through the water.
Yeah.
So coming up on our last break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the wall. That takes away from a lot of American workers when you don't have a wall, whether you believe it or not. They don't come over here just to drink the Kool-Aid. So we're going to get in just a moment more from Kimberly Borak, and it's spelled BVORAK. So whenever you're looking for her on Facebook, that's it. And you can keep up to date with her, the KB Report. And what's that other one? It is the AmericanConservative.com, but go to Facebook, all right, and it's BVORAK. Kimberly here, Wilder with Kimberly Borak. wanted, and if so, is it going to affect his 2020 campaign?
Well, if we look at what happened at CPAC on Saturday, the loyal and the faithful will continue to vote for him. And also, I think, with the calls of, he's a racist, he's a xenophobe, I mean, he's a bad person, why was he born? All of those types of things, those are labels that if people, go out and they talk about who they're going to vote for. It worked, the president underpolled in the 2016 election. I suspect that will be some of the same because the economy is still doing very well, much better, even though President Obama wants to take credit for the economy right now. The economy is doing well. People in this country are working, they are making more money, and manufacturing jobs are back. And I think one of the last pieces of the puzzle for the president is getting that wall built. And do you have a lot of people that just simply think that the wall needs to be built? There's been tons of busts here with the fentanyl and the drugs pouring in the country. And we know from footage that I get, all the time that, the people that are some of the people crossing the border aren't coming here for a better life. They are actually drug cartels or MS-13. They belong to gangs. They're killing people. They're, getting people addicted to drugs, and people are overdosing in the largest numbers we've seen, in part because it's so easy to get these drugs. And also just kind of one quick point on the overdose and why people are buying drugs. You look at the drug cartels, and they actually run like businesses. Well, a lot of states have legalized marijuana. So for them to continue their profit margin and keep their illegal, illicit business up and going, they've had to be more creative. And the way they've been more creative has been by adding this fentanyl to virtually any drug. And we're seeing overdoses and addiction rates go up as a result of that. So that's kind of something the president needs to kind of work on. If he gets that, I mean, it's most likely that he's going to win re-election, but he needs to stay true to himself. And that's one of the last things that he promised the American people. And he's being blocked at every level, of course, by Democrats, but he's got to stay on top of that wall.
And Kimberly, statistics showing that more Americans are dying from those overdoses of drugs than we're dying daily.
Yep.
In Vietnam, and yet the Dems still want to holler, this is not an emergency.
Yeah.
And I wish I had time to really get into with this about Senator Rand Paul, Kentucky. I've always admired the guy because he really sticks with the Constitution. But when he says, I can't vote to give extra constitutional powers to the president, he kind of throws me off. I know we only got about 40 seconds.
Okay.
Can you comment on that?
Well, I'll come back next week and tell you. I'm actually going to be meeting with him on Thursday. The way he looks at this, I met with him last week as well. He's looking at this purely from a constitutional standpoint. And he's worried that if this goes through and the president's able to do this, that next time it's going to be another, Democrat or independent or whomever is president. They're going to say, you know what? Americans don't need drugs. So we're going to take away all the no more aspirin, no more Tylenol. That's going to be gone for, or they're going to come after your weapons and firearms. So that's why he's doing that.